The crow-feathered weirdo that works as a shadow guard for the Yao Qing and its general, feixiao. He's not much for conversation, rarely speaking, and quite literally blends into the background at times.
I've mastered the ability of standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye.
Because he isn't very vocal with what he's thinking and didn't get many opportunities to shine during the second Xianzhou visit, we don't learn a lot about him from the story, though we still get good moments of characterization that I'll touch on later. Thankfully, his character stories help to fill in the blanks. Moze is a victim of the disciples of Sanctus Medicus. They performed grueling experiments on him in the name of their Eon Yaoshi to transform him from a short-life species to a long-life one. They claimed it was a kind act on their part to heal his unspecified illness, but it was painful nonetheless. They forced him to swallow strange substances that made him feel like his body was being devoured and torn from the inside out. The disciples watched him suffer, telling him repeatedly to simply endure it. While writhing in pain, we get a small glimpse into what his life was like before he was kidnapped by the disciples. He will no longer be the orphan abandoned by his village in the wilderness. Then every word he speaks will be answered, and he will no longer be alone. He was a child who was exiled from the place he once called home, forced to survive in the wild in absolute solitude. I want to bring up the meaning behind his name, as I think it could tie into this part of his backstory. The Mo in Moze can mean leopard, which tend to be symbols for stealth, bravery, cunning, shapeshifting, as well as survival and self-reliance. Those last two tie into how he presents himself to others, like how he told the Astral Express crew that he didn't want to rescue jiaoqiu, prioritizing his own safety above all else. We'll touch on that a bit later. The Z part of his name means marsh or swamp, which can tie into his dark aesthetic and the fact that crows are found to live near marshes. The name Moze derives from Chinese legend. It's documented in the miscellaneous morsels from Yu Yang, a collection of short anecdotes and stories of both fantastical and mundane phenomena, that the Moze is a beast as big as a dog, and its fat is very hard to hold as it can slip through hands, clay, and even metal, but it can't slip through bone-made vessels. The slipperiness of the beast's fat coincides with how easily Moze can sneak around wherever he goes and stay totally undetected, as well as how often he's broken out of jail, according to jiaoqiu in Inquisition to Rectitude. Plus, the comparison of the beast being the size of a dog could relate to his affiliation with Foxians like feixiao and jiaoqiu. I provide this context of etymology because I believe the origins of his name can connect to his backstory. It's possible the vague illness Moze was suffering from had something to do with his bones or flesh, which would explain the excruciating pain being internal. The final line of his first character story is the following quote: "No one cares what he has to say, so he slowly grows accustomed to not talking." His preference to speak as little as possible is a product of how he was nothing more than a guinea pig of the Sanctus Medicus, and the saddest part is that he was groomed to believe this wasn't as abhorrent as it was.
I was raised by the disciples of Sanctus Medicus. Never-ending treatments, unreasonable family rules, and temperamental family members. I used to think all these things were a part of normal life.
He was such a young and impressionable orphan with no solid concept of family that he genuinely believed what these people did to him was done out of genuine love and kindness. That is heartbreaking to see. That's why when feixiao killed the disciples he deemed as family, he attacked her to try getting revenge. Feixiao pretty easily handled Moze and disarmed him. She was reminded of how she was in the Borson war camp, so she took him in. She promised that one day he'd be able to enact his vengeance on her. "Of course, until the day you kill me, you must do as I tell you. You will eat 3 square meals every day, study, learn martial arts. Oh, and you will shower daily." The symbol of their promise was the single strail she gave to him that day. The same strail Moze is clutching in his E6 art. Can you tell the producer of this game is a Trails fan? Also, brief tangent, but I find that last bit of feixiao's dialogue really funny. I imagine Moze took the shower daily bit to heart, and that's why 2 of his hobbies are bathing and cleaning. It's a dumb headcanon, but I find it funny and I wanted to bring it up. Feixiao selected Moze to be the shadow guard of the Yao Qing. his dagger was not only pointed at the general, but also the enemies of the ship. You would think that since he still sees the Sanctus Medicus as his family, he was only tagging along with feixiao and jiaoqiu to follow orders and nothing more. And he certainly seems to come off that way in the first half of the continuance questline, particularly when you run into him after Hule broke out of his cell. Like I mentioned before with the meaning of his name, this scene in Rogues on the Run has Moze show zero sympathy for Jiaoqiu's situation. He says trying to save Jiaoqiu is a lost cause, and that there was no way they stood a chance against Hule. He also said his initial plan was to get out of the shackling prison on his own and report back, indicating at face value that he's only concerned with his well-being and no one else's. Then cut to the very next patch where he's actively trying to save Jiaoqiu from Hule and apologizes to feixiao for failing to do so. 2.4 Moze, I don't care about Jiaoqiu, I only care about myself. 2.5 Moze, I'll protect this man with my life actually. It's clear Moze does care about his general and fellow retainer, despite what he claimed to feel back in the shackling prison. I don't think this is an inconsistency with the writing. The key difference between 2.4 and 0.5 is who he's interacting with. The shackling prison scene has him talk to the Trailblazer, Dan Heng, and Hanya, people he's unfamiliar with, so it can be interpreted that he's putting up an indifferent front around them specifically. When around feixiao and jiaoqiu, that's when he drops the facade and shows he does care for them. If that's not enough, listen to feixiao's voice line about him.
I granted him permission to assassinate me anytime he wished. Lately, his attempts have become less frequent, but his accuracy has improved significantly.
Now listen to Moze's voice line about her.
Feixiao allows me to try to assassinate her at any time. She uses me as a dagger with which to sharpen her senses. This is how she shows her trust in me. But to this day, I have not won a single time.
You see the quotations around the word assassinate, as if it's not actually an assassination at this point, it's just Moze testing feixiao's reflexes without any true murderous intent. It's apparent he's changed a lot from the tortured kid who sought revenge, even if he refuses to acknowledge it. If he did, what meaning would his vengeance and their vow have? I like to interpret that line from his final character story as him believing that if he were to stop with the assassination attempts completely, then feixiao wouldn't need him anymore as her shadow guard. He keeps doing it because he wants to be kept around. Him developing a fondness for his comrades lines up with his association with crows. Crows are often symbols for bad omens, but there are some positive spiritual meanings to crows as well. Crows can symbolize someone going through spiritual or emotional change, which is exactly what Moze has done. The last line of his fourth character story perfectly illustrates the change in his outlook. He's become accustomed to not speaking, but also to having people speak on his behalf. Over the years, he's realized the type of people his former family truly was, but has found a new family of good people who treat him with genuine tenderness. Even when he tries his hardest to repress thoughts of his past and how awful his upbringing really was, some part of him is aware that his life is better now than it ever was before. A touching story like that makes me happy that Moze is here to complete this lovely trio. Thank you for watching this video. This is one part of a series of analysis videos on the Xianzhou's cast of characters. If you want to see me analyze another character from the Xianzhou, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future uploads. Also, like this video to let me know if I did a good job. As a smaller content creator on the platform, engaging with my videos really, truly helps me out. Thank you once again for watching, have a great rest of your day, and until we meet again, take care.